The rusty white van rattled down the long stretch of country highway beneath the bright afternoon sun, the kind of peaceful day that made the world look too calm for anything terrible to be happening. But inside that van, fear sat trembling in the shape of an 8-year-old girl. Marina Hale pressed her small hand against the dust-covered rear window, her fingers shaking as she lifted a wrinkled piece of paper she'd written on with all the courage she could gather. The message was short, desperate, the kind no child should ever have to write. Kidnapped. Help. She held it up, praying someone, anyone, would see her. Her heart thudded painfully as sunlight streaked across the empty highway, and for a moment she felt her hopes slipping away into the quiet. But then, just ahead on the roadside, she saw several motorcycles parked in a cluster. Their riders, big, rough-looking men, had paused for water and conversation. As the van rolled past them, Marina watched their heads turn, watched them squint toward her, their expressions shifting from curiosity to shock to understanding. And among them stood Grant Maddox, president of the Iron Thorn Riders, MC, a man whose presence alone could silence a room. His beard glinted in the sunlight, his broad shoulders marked by scars and stories, and his sharp eyes locked on the rear of the van, where a terrified little girl begged for help without a sound. Silas Draven, towering and bald, Rowan Vale, quiet and sharp as a blade, and Briar Leon, younger but loyal to the bone, all of them saw it too. No words were exchanged. None were needed. Helmets snapped on. Boots hit gravel. Engines roared to life like they'd been awakened by destiny itself. Meanwhile, inside the van, Marina's tiny fingers ached from holding the sign. The air smelled like gasoline and dust, and every bump in the road made fear crawl deeper under her skin. Trevor Colling, the man who took her, muttered to himself, clutching the steering wheel with agitated hands. He believed he still had time. He believed no one would notice. Marina remembered her mother's voice, telling her that courage didn't always come from loudness. Sometimes it came from shaking hands, doing the right thing anyway. So she wrote her message. And she hoped. Behind her, the roar of engines grew louder, fiercer. The bikers formed a tight formation as they chased a van, the sun flashing off the chrome of their motorcycles like sparks. Grant sped ahead, jaw tight, the image of the girl's terrified face burning into him. He didn't know her name. He didn't know her story. But he knew one thing. He wasn't leaving her behind. The van swerved as Trevor glimpsed the motorcycles in his mirror. Panic flooded his face. He slammed the accelerator, but the bikers were faster, much faster. Grant signaled with a small hand motion, and the club moved like a single organism. Rowan veered left, blocking any passing cars. Silas pushed forward on the right, forcing the van toward the shoulder. Briar stayed behind to keep traffic clear. The stretch of highway was long, empty, silent, until the thunder of their engines swallowed the stillness whole. Inside the van, Marina pressed her trembling hands against the glass, watching these leather-clad strangers refuse to fall back. Something warm flickered inside her. Hope. Grant finally pulled close enough to see her again. Those wide, tear-filled eyes. The bruised fear. Something inside him snapped, not with anger, but with purpose. Save the child. He surged ahead. Silas accelerated. Trevor screamed in frustration, jerking the wheel, but fear made him sloppy. Grant seized the moment. He gunned the engine, pulling up beside the driver's window long enough for Trevor to see the fire blazing in his eyes, a wordless warning that this road had reached its end. The van fishtailed wildly, skidding onto the gravel shoulder. Dust exploded into the air. The bikers surrounded it instantly, forming an unbreakable ring of chrome and muscle. Before his motorcycle fully stopped, Grant was already off it, boots punching into the dirt as he ran toward the back of the van. Trevor jumped out, tried to run, but Silas grabbed him in seconds, pinning him without a hint of hesitation. Grant tore open the back door, sunlight flooding into the van like a miracle. Marina blinked up at him through tears. For a second she hesitated. Fear still wrapped around her, but then she recognized something in his eyes. Safety, strength, a promise. She leapt forward, collapsing into his arms with a sob that had been trapped in her chest for hours. Grant held her gently, his huge hands careful and soft, as if she were made of something precious. Her tears soaked into his leather vest. And in that moment, the world felt still, quiet, change. As he carried her out into the warm light, Grant felt something shift inside him. He had lived long enough to know darkness well, but today proved something different. Light still existed. Courage still existed. Kindness could still roar across asphalt on two wheels. Hours later, when Marina was safely returned to her mother and Trevor was taken into custody, the bikers stood outside their clubhouse in the fading sun. Grant stared down the quiet highway where they had chased a van, replaying the moment Marina looked at him through that dusty window, begging silently for help. They were far from perfect men, rough around the edges. But today, they had been exactly what someone needed. Guardians, protectors, hope wrapped in leather and chrome. And as the story spread through town, people realized something powerful. Heroes don't always show up in uniforms. Sometimes they arrive with roaring engines, tattooed arms, and hearts strong enough to save a life. If this story touched your heart, please share, comment, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Tell us, what would you have done if you saw a little girl asking for help?